the Rock and Roll to Hit Show! And we're back. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Rock and Roll to Hit podcast. I am your fantastic and very handsome host, the voice in the sky, joined by my illustrious companions, the equally handsome, far-seeing into the future, intellectually devout Oracle.
Hello. I have pattern recognition.
And then we have our also incredibly handsome, also shockingly athletic and very talented, and yes. Don't look surprised at me when I compliment your prowess. Run Team T.
Yeah, I'm still working on receiving affirmations in my late 30s.
All good. I think we are all working on receiving affirmations. So, we're back. Who would have predicted another episode coming out so soon? I know I wouldn't have.
Well, I mean, I got hooked. You
Yeah.
know, just give me a microphone and let me talk about nonsense.
Nonsense
Get some
is
friends
fun.
in here, talk
Nonsense is
about
fun.
cool stuff.
Nonsense is fun.
It's exciting.
And we have nothing but the hardest hitting questions possible. Nothing but the hardest hitting questions possible. So, Oracle, number one question.
Man, the right spot.
Yeah, you're in the right spot. Tell me about your world berries.
Oh, my world berries.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna say that berries are not particularly something that I had spent a lot of time thinking about. I feel like that if we're just going off of our individual campaigns, I guess I would just have to say I have some sort of probably twisted berry.
All right, that makes sense. Is it like a razzmatazz berry or something like that? An unholy abomination?
Hey, it's vaguely familiar to our world and yet has gone through some form of corruption.
That
So I think it's best
Ew.
to sometimes give a description such as that and then kind of let the listeners' imagination run wild for them.
If anyone else has ever eaten rotten berries or berries that accidentally got wasps inside them, you know where my brain is going.
Those are both very awful things to have happen and
Yes.
quite different ends of the spectrum, I
They
feel
are.
like.
Didn't realize that was a thing
It
until
can
now.
be
Now I'm
absolutely a thing.
afraid.
How do you eat a berry that has a wasp in it?
They get inside
What are the
and
Anglo-Saxons doing there?
they were not having a good time. Is what they were doing. it was the past was a difficult time.
Yeah. Well, but in all seriousness, with the Oracle here, I mean, I'm just like really giddy in my seat here, and I want to just also ask some hard hitting questions
Yeah.
because a new Nuzlocke challenger has entered the ring,
Yes.
Oh, we're
and
starting
I
off
was
with that.
wondering
Okay.
if Oracle could share more about that. I really like a lot of what's going on there.
Oh, okay. You're gonna make me start with that. All right. Well,
Well, here. Let me preface this a little bit.
Yeah. Preface.
The Rock and Roll to Hit channel is producing some Nuzlocke challenges right now. All great production,
Yep.
all with their own vibes and feels and fears.
And fears.
And
And one adjacent production over on Mr. K's channel. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
I was kind of lumping that in there, but
Yeah.
you are correct. Mr. K is running a Nuzlocke as well. The Oracle has I'm referring to this as the Oracle run, where it is a new type of Nuzlocke challenge that allows a little bit more RP to happen, I think, some role play when selecting the first Pokemon that you want to catch rather than the one you encounter, which I think is pretty cool. You kind of get to feel the area a little bit, do some self-discovery. I like it. I think it builds an even closer bond potentially with some of the Pokemon you do catch because you chose them, they chose you, and that's what you're running with. And I know some people aren't as caught up with the
I'm
first
not.
episode.
I am not as caught up.
But there is a fun naming convention going on right there, and
which
I
honestly
won't
did
say
play
the
into.
Pokemon.
Yeah.
But is it okay, Oracle, if I share some of the names of the Pokemon?
Yeah, totally. And I'll just say that actually the naming convention, I think, kind of mid playthrough that first time led to me wanting to alter one of my pre-made rules that I decided I didn't care for kind of mid play
Mm-hmm.
because of the opportunity to catch a different Pokemon and name it after one of our characters.
Oh,
Interesting. What's the rule you're trying to alter at this point?
Well, I'm not altering it at this point. I in the message I did the pre-recorded. If
mm-hmm.
If you started it, I had
Future
that little
Oracle
preamble at
talking.
the
Yeah.
beginning where I essentially was like, "Hey, I'm going to contradict myself later in this video because I'm going to be talking about rules, and then I'm going to go back on it, and this is what the rules are
Mm-hmm.
now." That's mostly because, and if you haven't gotten that far yet either, that's fine. But I pulled a Mr. K in one of the routes. I think it was Route 20, where I knocked out the Pokemon I thought I was going to catch,
Mm.
and I was like, all right, whatever. And I moved on. And then when I was going back to a previous town, I encountered a totally different Pokemon that would have been was perfect for naming after one of our characters. And I was like, you know what? I'm changing my rules right now.
And
So
that's
that's why I had to do the
cool.
pre. The It wasn't a pre-recording, I guess. It's a
Mm-hmm.
post-recording. I put at the front of the video.
Yeah.
So some of the names that I caught, and granted, I've got about 5 minutes left in the episode, but we have a rooster, we have a Mavis,
Oh.
and we have an Auric.
Mhm.
Oh.
And there's one more. There's one more that maybe you haven't quite
Oh,
got to
Ooh.
yet.
okay, I haven't
And it's
got.
the
Ooh.
Wow,
fourth one.
okay,
And it's the
wow,
fourth
really?
one that made me change my rule, but I won't spoil it if you still have to watch that. But just it'll
Okay,
make sense when you see it.
Very cool.
okay, fun. All right, cool. So yeah, exciting stuff. Share us, if you can, just briefly, like a little bit about the anticipation of this.
Mm-hmm.
What are you looking forward
Yep.
to? What's on your mind while doing a Nuzlocke run? Have you done one before?
I've never like truly done one. Definitely not one that I've recorded. I
Mm-hmm.
think I've probably dabbled in doing one just like on my own time, just for me. Not recording by
Mm-hmm.
any means. But as I said when I was guesting on Juice Bags, I'm more of the casual of the group. Like I've played some of the games. I definitely haven't played all the generations,
Mm-hmm.
and I definitely don't have a lot of the memorization that a lot of you guys have with Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
But it was fun watching Douchebag play, and the main reason, and I kind of said this when I was on his pod, that I was excited to try it out was one, he's finally playing my favorite generation.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've to this day, and you guys got me back into playing, and I've played some of the more recent generations, but to this day, Gen 5 is my favorite.
Yeah.
Um, and so seeing both Josh, Douchebag, and Mr. K play it, I was like, I want to play it too. So,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to be branching out and working on other multimedia skills. Kind of little like, I work in media, but as a sort of like background role, and I've kind of been stuck doing one thing, and I'm trying to branch out, and so I'm trying to build some other media skills, and just this felt like a fun way to like work on those skills, but in a way that was felt creative
Mm-hmm.
and low pressure, and so that's kind of what brought me here. And since we're reviving the channel a little bit, it seemed like a good time to jump in and have these different Nuzlockes kind of operate in conversation with each other.
Agreed. And much appreciated too. I'm looking forward to watching the episode. I'm like
And
a
I'm
couple minutes in,
doing
but now I want to
yes,
finish it.
yes, and I'm doing there's black and white original, and then there's black and white 2, and
Mm-hmm.
I've actually only ever played black 2, which is what
Ooh,
I'm doing again. So I've
nice.
never played the actual original. So it is fun getting to see these two guys
Yeah.
because it's like mostly the same game, but it's a little different. Like you start
Mm-hmm.
off in different towns. Some of the NPCs are a little different. Some of the gym leaders are a little different. It's the same generation of Pokemon,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a little remix. So that's kind of
Yeah,
fun way to keep it fresh too.
that's nice. That's nice. Um, while we're on the topic of Pokemon, we just had the Oaken League opener and have worked our way through the first and second rounds of this current season. Uh, what do we think of the current standings? Any surprises? Anything shocking about the current standings?
I I'm trying not to set myself up for this because the standings right now, if I do recall, are at the bottom is Team Washington, which is a themed team
Mm-hmm.
by the Queen of Thebes.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's gonna figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Just got to get a good idea of how the synergy works for that
Mm-hmm.
team. Followed by, I believe,
Team
Team
Magma.
Magma.
Yep, Magma. And then
Yeah, Team Magma. Team Aqua is just barely on top with the head-to-head because Team Aqua came out and beat Team Magma in the
mm-hmm.
first round. And then it is the Jodo Boys' favorite
Mm-hmm.
youngster Joey
Yep, tied in third. And then
tied. Yeah,
Trainer Douchebag in second, and then Trainer Tittles in first.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, not to sound penisy, but I'm not too surprised at where Trainer Tittles is right
Mm-hmm.
now.
Mm-hmm. It's a strong team. It is a super powerful team. It's definitely the one to beat this season. I think the rule changes we did, allowing villain teams to have legendaries, was definitely a positive move. It definitely does no longer feels like they're a can to be crushed and to pad your record. They feel like a challenge you got to prep for. I think
For
that's
sure.
improved a lot. A little surprised by Queen of Thebes going with a theme team this season. Theme teams are traditionally very difficult to make work, but we'll see. We'll see if she can get it going.
They are challenging for
Mm-hmm.
sure, and the exciting thing about this season is that there are two villain teams,
Yes.
and on top of that, the board chair has announced that the winner gets a Jirachi wish.
Yeah. In terms of the lore.
So I'm really curious what all the different trainers and teams are wanting to potentially wish for.
They could ask for a rule change for next season. They
So
could.
what is a Jirachi wish exactly?
That's a
A
good.
wish.
That's a good question. So, what it is it's an in-lore event that's going to have practical effects. In that, you could maybe make a wish to be able to break a rule for this next season. Maybe you could wish for a certain gimmick to be instituted. Maybe that an exception be made for you, but not for anyone else. Stuff along those lines would be kind of what we would be looking at. The in lore thing is that it's actually a Jirachi, which is a wish Pokemon giving a wish to the character or whatever, if you're wanting to engage in the role play of the event. But if not, there is still a practical benefit that you can get from it as well.
So
Right.
exciting
So
stuff.
is a
I mean,
Jirachi a Pokemon then?
Yeah,
See, I'm
Jirachi
the
is a
casual
Pokemon.
here.
Yeah, they are a steel fairy. Is it steel fairy?
it is a
Oh,
Steel Fairy Pokemon for
yep,
sure.
steel fairy. They usually
What
get
games are they
A Wish
associated with?
Pokemon, I
yeah, they're the
believe,
wish
right?
Pokemon. Yeah,
Catching it can give you, it will grant you a wish.
Which games are it associated with, if any, or is it a manga thing?
let me double check real quick and let me get that information to you.
I'm
Gen 3.
pretty sure it's the mythic rare of Gen 3, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it is Gen 3 is when it was introduced.
Yeah.
And it was originally not steel fairy, steel psychic.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Steel
You're
psychic.
right.
It's also in competitive Pokemon. It's notorious for being a Serene Grace abuser.
Yes, Trainer Tittles used one when she was sucked into the legendary. No, actually, she did not use
She did
that.
not
It
use
was a
one.
janitor Giles.
Yeah, Janitor Giles. Yeah.
Used the Jirachi in
Yeah.
the legendary event that happened in the Oaken League.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, pretty exciting stuff. But hey, we're here talking to the Oracle,
Mm-hmm.
and I just like
And
I think
we
we
have
should get
we-
started with some real hard. Oh, you got a
we
question
do.
here?
No, no. I just want to say we have a theme for today. Character development and dynamic characters in tabletop games. Dynamic.
Dun dun.
Yeah. Yeah. Dynamic. Super dynamic, in fact. In fact, you could say, if we were talking Pokemon, a dynamic punch. However, I believe Run DMT does have a question to help us get started with this dialogue about dynamic characters.
Yeah, and I think we should really pull in from a past character that we all know and love. So talking about the differences between tabletop RPGs, TP RPGs, stories, and other kinds of stories, and how they, how when you encounter a character like Umala,
Mm.
and um, just how like I'm curious. I mean, should we just go ahead and start with like just the development of Umala? Like what took place in that?
Yeah, maybe a brief overview of who Umala was.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if you want me to handle
go for
that.
it. Go for it.
So basically, we were in Voice in the Skies campaign. We had previously done a run in it where all of our characters got wiped. We had done, I guess we should say, we really started with a one shot that we all enjoyed so much that Voice in the Sky then built a whole world out of. And we did a full run, which lasted maybe like 5 to 10 sessions,
Somewhere
or
in there.
maybe
Yeah,
less. I
yeah,
don't really
somewhere in there.
remember at
Yeah.
this point. But it was something around those lines where we had kind of gotten started, but we didn't get super deep just yet. And then all our characters, unfortunately, got thrown in the goblin pod after we got TPK'd,
Yeah.
and we kind of all went back to the drawing board. We're like, we really enjoy what you're cooking up here, Voice in the Sky. We want to stay in this world. We want to stay in this setting. But we gotta hit the drawing board. We gotta figure something else out because all of our characters died. And um, funnily enough, in the last episode you guys recorded, Run DMT mentioned Matt Colville, and I think a lot of us, shared around that time. It was also like right around. I think this was probably just before COVID. We were
Yeah, it
kind of
was just
starting
before.
to.
Yeah.
We had started streaming Discord D&D because we all lived in separate places, and it was a good way to stay in touch. So we were maybe a little ahead of the curve of the rest of the world with that regard. But like it was right around that time that he was putting out all these videos about playing the game. And there was a specific video about how two players in one of his games had an in-game kind of revelation conflict moment, which was really fun that he was sharing because they had hidden motivations from each other. And I was talking with Matt, being like, I want to try something different. This seems like a fun idea. I'm always kind of game to be like a button pusher as long as it's like fun for everybody. Like I don't want to make it to a point that it's unfun, but I do like subverting expectations. I do like being a little bit of a skullduggery person. So all in good fun. Because I think when we play these games, especially RPGs, we play elements of ourselves, but we also like over embellish parts of ourselves that maybe we don't act out in real life. And so in a game setting, I like being the shit stirrer, if you will. And so I was like, I want to have a character that's got hidden motivations, and it'd be really fun if I had these motivations that would be counter to what the party was doing.
Yeah.
Be in some ways have some sort of moment of betrayal at some point.
Yep.
And we kind of put our heads together on what that could look like. And we had also recently, right before our previous characters had killed, encountered a section where we've been rolling on a curses table. And I was like, I really like the idea of also kind of randomly generating aspects of my character and then having to follow those prompts. And so all of that kind of came together to create the character of Umala, who the short version is he had a curse where he had two heads, which was funny because that was the first thing we rolled, and I didn't initially go for
No.
it, and we rolled several times, and nothing felt right. So eventually we were like, let's just go with what the dice were originally telling us. And he made me roll again, and that's how I got the gnome head to go with the Goliath. And yeah, to best describe it to people who might somehow find this video and aren't a part of our games, or are part of our games now but weren't then, the best way I can sum up the story is I was also wanting to try to make a character who sort of was inspired by like Greek and Shakespearean tragedies, if you will. And I wanted to have a character that made a sort of Faustian deal isn't the exact perfect analogy.
It,
I think the better analogy is
mhm.
if you've ever watched Beauty and the Beast, the deal that the father of Belle makes
Yeah.
to try to spare his daughter was a big inspiration.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, that's kind of how we got things started. And I think I've been setting things up long enough that maybe you guys can
Yeah.
point the ship in a different direction or however you want to go with this.
Yeah. So comes to me with this character, and right off the bat, it gets my brain going because I'd never had a character, a PC, come to me and say, "Hey, I want to betray the party at some point." Now, of course, that's an experience that many dungeon masters have talked about. There's a number of videos out there. Matt Koval, of course, is one of them who did a great video on that. And, it's something that I'd heard of other dungeon masters doing since for over a decade at that point in time. I just had never run into it or encountered it myself. And so I'm on board right away. And then goes on to build up this complex lore and backstory for his character, and including an entire culture and ways of people interacting with each other and a belief system that this character is coming from that's coloring his worldview. And I have to start coming up with villains and motivations to match to get to that same level so that it would feel realistic for Umala to betray. And as we're doing this, and this is to get to the question that Run DMT has asked us, we ran into a problem. The way we were developing Umala, and Charlie was the name of the gnome head. The together name, the plural name was the Fork. Was like, this is all makes a lot of sense, like on paper, but it makes sense to us because we're seeing it from the character's point of view, from the people that are on the outside looking in, collaborating with this person. This is not going to be a good sell. This isn't going to work. It's going to feel like an incredibly unlikable character who then predictably betrays, and that's not what we want. We want a doomed character that everyone loves who has to betray. And so we had to revise things. We couldn't tell it the way we would tell a tragedy, in which the audience knows what is going on internally with the other character. Think about it like the story of Hamlet. We, the audience, are very sympathetic with Hamlet because we see what's going on with Hamlet. No one else understands what's going on with Hamlet. Even Horatio is someone on the outside. Right? So
Kind of important in that
yeah,
story that no
yeah.
one knows what's going on with Hamlet.
It's very important that no one knows what's going on with Hamlet. If they knew what was going on with Hamlet, they would stop him. And so we had to revise the character and the way he was being presented in order to, one, make him engage with the party, be a true member of it, and really want to be a member of this party so that the tragedy is really felt, both by the player, Oracle, and also by the party as well, so that it does feel like a complete 180. And that way we could leave hints leading up to it over the years and not have it be this big thing like, oh, I knew it, I called it. We wanted it instead to be looking back and then putting all the dots together. Is really what we wanted. And when you're making a story that is collaborative, you have to remember your audience is the other members of your party. And that's one of the big things, and that's how I would answer the question, Run DMT.
I'm curious. Along the way, I mean, this spanned over multiple years in real time.
Like 6 years, maybe 7.
Were there any points where you were catching or seeing maybe potentially the other players of the party catching on to some? Were they picking up breadcrumbs, and if so, could you? I mean, since it's come to pass, like maybe highlight some of those moments.
An interesting question you asked. I'm sure that was because I think the only one that I could really personally say that I know was you at one point. I don't think you knew necessarily about that character specifically, but we had been dropping some breadcrumbs about who the future character would be and about my character's backstory. And there was definitely a conversation one time where you straight up just called out what my now character was like, that seems like it would be that, but it can't be because of what you guys said. But you had it right off, and I just had to try to play it off. But
Yeah. So
uh,
to clarify for our audience, Umala and Shirley, like it did pass. They passed away after a partial betrayal of the party, trying to stop that betrayal, but it resulted in their death. And then the backup character that, excuse me, once again, Oracle has been prepping for years, came to the forefront, and Run DMT had predicted it in part, as had Juicebag partially.
remind us what Douchebag predicted, because
He
that's escaping me.
he had predicted that the character he had encountered at one point was your daughter.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah,
Interesting.
as did Run DMT.
It was my
Yes.
headcanon for the longest
Yeah.
time that space traveler was Umala's daughter,
Yep.
but then I don't know a better word besides gaslit, but I was made to believe that
Yeah.
that was untrue.
We gaslit the entire party.
And, it was as close to ethical gaslighting as you can possibly
Yeah.
do. But,
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's another word for that. Yeah, I would use that.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, and then I would say Douchebag and DMT were both caught on at some point that Umala didn't seem very like his self-preservation was maybe not fully there.
Yeah. That I think they did pick up on. And maybe other players also picked up on it but didn't disclose it out loud. But definitely in terms of out loud dialogue. Honestly, I think both of Run DMT's characters picked up on it at different points.
But yeah, and I think Matt, taking this back just a little bit in the conversation, I think what Matt was kind of outlining too was also, I think, pretty crucial to the story. And I think maybe into banking, I don't know if I want to call it dynamic characters or whatever for my own, but the idea of creating these characters that have layers or have more than just your standard, tropey fare, perhaps, is being able to adapt to what you're playing at the table. At least in this type of storytelling, that's pretty crucial because you can come in with all these ideas, but you have to be able to adjust over time. And in a way, it was kind of like, when someone writes a series of books, how I think I would imagine that changes over time too as you're writing. Sometimes you kind of come across an idea and you're like, this just feels like maybe I should change up the direction I was going in, or maybe I should add more to this part of my knowledge of this character or their part of their backstory. Because I would say, it's not like I had the Amala character all written out and figured out. There was definitely stuff that got added over time.
Yeah. Yeah. And we left space to improv and pivot and be flexible as we went forward.
I think that's the important ingredient right there is the give and take of being flexible and adding in kind of like the theme from our last episode, which is adding in some collaboration. What are some ways, I mean, both of you experienced this working together. Could you tell me about what that collaboration process kind of looked like? Can you reveal behind the curtain there on some of those conversations?
Do you have a line of thinking of like maybe more specifically what parts of that you might look into? Because there was like, I'd say really the answer is like there was that initial brainstorm and then it was just kind of messaging back and forth as new things happened in the game.
Yeah.
I guess, how about this? What advice would you give to like a DM or a player on having those kind of conversations or approaching these ideas and having them go through in the actual sessions?
Oh, that question makes more sense to me. I think the number one thing I would say is talk it out and work together. Like Ryan and I's visions for how it would play out didn't always match. And so we would have to brainstorm around our suggestions and listen to each other's suggestions and work through it. And, Oracle and I both historically tend to be fairly stubborn, creative people. Certainly, I am very stubborn.
Mm.
But working together and being willing to give to get, like what you said, run DMT, is super super critical. And working with Oracle, as long as I have known him, has been one of the great lessons he has taught me in my life since our early college days.
Yeah, I mean, to elaborate on that a little more on both fronts, I think starting just with the character stuff, I think that there's a phrase in or an idiom maybe in writing that's called "kill your darlings," and that's not exactly the exact. That's about writing these characters and not being afraid to let bad things happen to them in the story. And I think to me, it's a similar idea in that, like, to me, like, if I was to boil it down even simpler, it's like just don't be precious. Like, you have these ideas,
Mm-hmm.
but it's okay if they're not like exactly how you initially thought
Mm-hmm.
of them or end up going in a different direction. Because
Yes.
like there's no collaboration where you're ever going to be always 100% on the same page 100% of the
Yes.
way. There's a reason why, you see these creative partnerships, even in professional settings, that can last decades and still have a falling out, or,
Yeah.
sometimes much quicker. It's just because you're never going to have that lockstep
Mm-hmm.
100% vision. And so the less precious you can be with your ideas, the
Mm-hmm.
more you can be willing to be like, hey, these are the things that I think are core, but like, here's how maybe we could shift and fit your vision a little bit as
Mm-hmm.
well. And here's the things that really like, I have this idea,
Mm-hmm.
but like, in the end, is it super critical that it goes exactly
Mm-hmm.
how my first thoughts on the matter
Yeah.
were? Because a lot of times too, you might think an idea is stupid when you first hear it, and then the more you marinate on it, the
Yeah.
more you're like, actually, you know what? That's not
That's actually
terrible.
that's
And like,
actually a good idea.
how can I make this work for me in a way that also makes me feel like I'm adding to it?
Yeah. The
And
Yeah. Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead. I was gonna add on to that, and especially when it's a DM or a GM collaborating with a player, you have to, for most players, part of the collaboration has to be in the dark. Otherwise, the surprises for them run out. So you have to hear what those non-negotiables are, the beats of the story that the player wants to hit, and then you have to improv off of those beats to try and get to them, and also leave it up to chance. That way, the player is still getting surprises, is still having fun, and it's still dynamic play for them. That way, it comes off as genuine and not pre-planned.
Because it's no fun to have like every beat planned out. And
Exactly.
so, there's certain stuff you can plan for, and then certain stuff that it's like, for me, it was like, okay, these are what I know, and here's the things that I think I know,
Mm-hmm.
and this is how I'm going to be operating. But because we're throwing these under the I think I know umbrella, feel free to subvert my
Mm-hmm.
expectations with this. And yeah, it's just I think that's the spirit of collaboration.
It,
To touch on the other thing we're talking about, which was just maybe this is self-serving because
mm-hmm.
it's our own personal relationship, but I always enjoy both just having conversations and collaborating with or I'm Oracle with with Voice in the Sky
Yeah.
because for one thing we're both Scorpios, so I
Yes.
think our birthdays are very close to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, we both have. I think of us as natural foils, if I'm being honest,
Yes.
because I think there's a lot of things that we have similarities in in approach
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, or similarities in I don't even know the right word for it, but it's like so many times I feel like we often get to similar places, but we're coming from completely
Completely
different
different.
routes.
Completely different routes.
Like even just
Yeah.
listening to your guys' last episode
Yeah.
and listening to you guys talk about some of the things you were talking about, where I was like, I can understand where Voice in the Sky is coming from,
Mm-hmm.
but here's why I was countering what he's saying, you know,
Yeah.
or I would maybe like, well, maybe you should look at it this way,
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
and likewise he does the same for me, and
Yep.
so that's what I always enjoy. these conversations when we can have them.
Yeah, absolutely. And so one of the ways I knew it was we were on to we were touching on to magic with Umala, and Charlie was one, how much the party loved him right out of the bat, how much fun you were having. But the moment I realized that this was really going to be something special was the first time you messaged me in private and said, "You son of a bitch!" And
What moment was that?
that was when Nightcrasher first landed on the ship, which had no input onto or that was going to happen. And I surprised him with it.
That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I don't remember exactly how that scene played out because I don't think you revealed too much about the captain on that ship.
did not
You
know.
did read out the ship's name, which was I named it, so you know, I was like, this is up to no good here. But then there'd
Yes.
be other times too where you would drop some names through information the party was finding out, and like a name would get dropped, and I would have to just be like, all right, keep a straight face,
yeah.
don't reveal anything on camera. But yeah, so it was a lot of fun. And you know, you asked about creating this type of character too. One other thing I just want to throw out there that I highly recommend to people. This might not work for everyone, but it's how my brain is wired. But I love to make playlists for characters.
Yes.
And
Couldn't agree
to
more.
be honest, I don't have a single D&D character where, you know, you make a playlist initially because you're like, these are the themes I'm going after. These are the songs that I think fit those themes, yada, yada, yada. And then, you know, you'll be listening to music as you do, and you'll come across other songs. You're like, oh, I want to add this to my playlist, and I want to add this one. And this film makes me, and a lot of times just listening to those songs will make me think of new backstory or new little elements or new little things about a character's personality or attitude that I want to work in more in the future. And so it's both a way to like keep generating depth for your character and also a really good way to like, you know, I touch with music rather emotionally. So like I love listening to it for like the week leading up to a game
Yes.
because I can kind of ground myself and like I think this is some stuff that might be coming ahead based on how the game's going. These are the emotions I want to feel, so I might listen to like a certain section of the playlist or things like that. And I know that's not how everybody's brain works, but for me, it's been really effective.
Yeah. No, so you are you and Run DMT are the ones that turned me on to doing that. And I started doing it as well, and I cannot vouch for it enough as a technique to help you get inside your character's head. It also serves as a really good way to be a note taker if you do like a chronological series of events and having each song be attached to an event that happened. It can get overwhelming when it's a campaign that goes on for years, but then as you listen to the playlist, you're like, oh yeah, that happened, and oh yeah, that happened, and oh, I forgot about that event. And it becomes sort of you're walking through memory lane as you go through the playlist.
For sure,
Yeah, for sure.
especially when you might have a type of memory where sometimes if someone was to like ask you like point blank, like cold call you in a way to like, hey, can you just recall this happening? You go, no, but then if you like give yourself a little jump start with those kinds of, sometimes it helps you go, oh wait, yeah, I remember now. So I can't
Yeah.
recommend it.
And the playlist also helps. I mean, I know with the Strongholds campaign, you know, Oracle has a character named Zidane, and I've gotten a playlist from Zidane when Zidane was first made, and that helped me understand some of the themes that the Oracle was going for. So that kind of like adds to the collaboration of dynamic characters now that we're talking about this. And also creates some of the unknown. There are things that I've interpreted from the songs that might be a little bit different than what the Oracle has, and that will add to some of the maybe twists or different turns that might happen in the story because of that. So there's still that unknown. It's still exciting because, you know, art can just be interpreted in so many different ways.
Yeah.
So it's exciting to do that. I mean, yeah, I make playlists even for one-shot characters. And sometimes those are my favorite. Those are my most listened to playlists because they're bangers.
Yeah.
But you know, I strongly suggest, people definitely
And
do that.
and you know, for a game master or dungeon master, that's such a resource because to suddenly pull a song from a character's playlist and start playing it at a crucial dramatic moment in the soundtrack for your campaign, if you have a soundtrack, which I do encourage, I'm a big believer in soundtracks, it can create such a special moment for those players. So I definitely think that's a great thing. And like, so not only make the playlist, but then share them with your dungeon master. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I'm curious, you two have shown like what can happen when you're collaborating together. You're making dynamic character to play in a near lifelong campaign. Um, I guess it's a question for everybody. Like, how can DMs, game masters encourage players to create well-rounded characters that contribute positively to the group dynamic in a tabletop RPG such as Dungeons and Dragons?
So first off, I think that unless it is an experienced table, you should allow some metagaming in terms of party balance, at least on the technical side, and allow players to talk about their backstories with each other too, especially if they're beginners, to help see how they can play and work together. Yeah.
But let's flip this. I want to answer this question, but I also kind of want to flip it back on Run DMT here for a little bit, and like
Oh no.
maybe for our listeners too who've been listening to us
yeah.
talk to this,
Yeah, flip it back
talk
on 'em.
about this for a moment and are still going, well, what exactly do you mean by dynamic character? So
Oh,
like
yeah.
maybe if we laid out some ground rules, like, okay, because we were talking about like if you're beginning or maybe if you're just wanting to improve, level up your character creation. When we say dynamic characters, what are we actually saying?
Because when I think of a dynamic character, Oracle, you know who I think of? I think of Ton K. Zillion and
I think that's a good one.
Brock P. Moonstone. They come to like the top of my. I think of Oric Duana, and I also think of oh my gosh, why is his name escaping me all of a sudden at this crucial moment when I need it the most?
Warren?
Warren.
Norman!
Yes, Warren. What? So, tell us, oh dynamic character creator, what makes a dynamic character?
Oh man, you just did the Uno reverse on me. I was not prepared. I don't have a counter spell in my hand.
Playing a blue
Well,
deck,
I
you need
mean,
to be prepared.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. I just don't have enough mana. It got used in the earlier Let's Play I was recording in. I I'll just narrow it down. I think a dynamic character. I think one playlists have always helped me do that. I know we've kind of covered that, but that helped me with Brock. When I was in a place when I made Brock, I was actually distraught. I was not in the best state of mind because a previous character that I spent a lot of time making and working with the Voice in the Sky to do, and I still love the character even though I only played like 3 sessions with him, died in a TPK.
Yeah.
Voice in the Sky literally had to virtually hold my hand through the process, even when it came to naming Brock P. Moonstone, because of just how devastated I was.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Very dramatic player, and like my character's dead. This is
And
just
I had to
awful in this
rewrite
world.
lore beats, and you guys are still encountering pieces of lore that had been left behind for that character.
So yeah, still writing into Tobin lore, and I'm like, what could have been? Like the what if?
What could have been?
And so a lot of it was kind of learn on the go. And the more I played the character Brock, the more I understood him. And that's why I think it might have been a better idea if I actually did, buck up and actually do a lot of the pre-work with the character, because I did find myself playing Brock into corners and getting stuck, and then I had to get the reverse in there with the DM's help and kind of move around, and ultimately I think it might have led to the character's death. But Spoilers if you haven't been caught up in the last several years, but
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So that was a lesson with Brock, was like it's good to learn on the fly because you get the feel, you're playing with it. You know, it's like listening to the music, you're understanding the song more the more you listen
Mm-hmm.
to it. So I took a different approach, maybe a more mature approach, despite the character being really, really fucking silly. Excuse my language. Sorry, voice in this
You get
guy.
one
I
of
can't.
those before we get like a rating change.
Yeah,
Okay, okay, okay.
That was our one,
And
that
so
was our one.
everybody else
Yeah,
note that.
yeah.
so when I approached the idea with Voice in the Sky for Tauntaun Kazillion, um, it was a lot of work, collaboration, I
Mm-hmm.
think. I gave off some themes, some ideas of how I was going to play the
Mm-hmm.
character, what I wanted mechanically to do with the character, and then just put all the trust in the DM to accommodate those and find ways to make that work, and that's created a lot of mystery. So I think a dynamic character in some way needs to have unknowns to
Yeah.
it so that the DM can add to it. The dynamic doesn't come all from the player. You know, if I
Mm-hmm.
were to go to Voice in the Sky and be like, I want to, my character at some point needs to do this, this, and that, there's no surprise there. There's
Yeah.
no like raw natural reactions to things. There needs to be surprise. So, you know, my character has some time travel themes, and in it a brother, a sibling who died from said time travel or something like that. I left that. I'm like, put
Mm-hmm.
that in the DM corner. Let that
Mm-hmm.
him bounce the ball around with that in the court. And what the voice in the sky has been doing has been great so far. It's been like uncovering a mystery that I have no idea about. I know the
Mm-hmm.
players, I know the pieces, but I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how. And that leads to intrigue and gives me something to play around with when role playing with other characters, because a lot of background comes from the role play.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, a lot of that was with a doomed character in Umala, who Tong became really good friends with.
Really good friends.
I literally cried when Umala died. That was a moment.
Yeah.
You
I
know
kind
what?
of
I
wish I
think
could take
we're
that back, but it
I
happened.
think also was literally very upset once things were revealed after the fact as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. There was a lot of feels there for Tonk and me as a player.
Mm-hmm.
Still very dramatic years later. And then I mean, and I won't say too much more, but with Auric, because I would think maybe Auric's maybe my most rounded character.
Mm-hmm.
I think I feel the most attached to Auric
Mm-hmm.
in a sense of understanding what he's thinking and why. Partly because of something I agree with is that uh, Oracle, what you mentioned earlier in this is that there our characters have pieces of us
Mm-hmm.
or pieces of us that we want to
Mm-hmm.
explore or play that we maybe wouldn't get a chance to in the real life.
Yeah.
So like Oric is we joke Oric's a cop, but like Oric has a sense of justice and of like almost black and white
Mm-hmm.
view of it, but also skews it in a very uh a way that kind of benefits him and or his family or
Mm-hmm.
friends, which I think people do every day. We
Yeah.
justify our
Mm-hmm.
actions, so it's that's been fun to explore in a fantasy setting where like your values are being challenged.
Yeah.
And so having values, I think, is another way of having a dynamic character
Agree.
so that those can be challenged or practiced
Yeah.
in the scenarios um that you encounter.
Yeah.
And something I've learned from like acting, like not that I'm an actor, but I like look into it.
Yeah.
And one thing that got pitched that I was reading about not too long ago was like a scenario you should probably think about when making a character or being portraying a character is if there's a $5 bill or some type of money amount on the floor in a room, every character should grab it differently. So like how does your character go and grab the dollar bill? Do they go and be, sneakily? Are they like lying out their teeth saying that it's theirs, or are they trying to find the original owner? So like there's a lot of different options in that. So like maybe think about what scenarios you find your character in and how they react to it to kind of get an idea of who your character is and why they do the things that they do.
Yeah, so I think if we were trying to take that answer and then maybe make a checklist, I think you hit on a lot of those. I
Mm-hmm.
think one is like a dynamic character is a character who has clearly defined values. It might only be
Mm-hmm.
one value, it might be two values, but like values that you know are sort of your home base.
Yep.
And then I think on top of it, if you can add a theme that you're trying to explore, that's a good way
Mm-hmm.
to make a dynamic character, especially if you can think of something that is maybe not something that's so what's the word I'm looking for? Where it's like it's one thing or the other, where it's maybe more fluid, where you can take lots of different
Mm-hmm.
interpretations or be open to being surprised on your interpretation of and I think, you know, having either whether it's a flaw or whether it's something in your character story that's a challenge that presents an opportunity to change and grow over time. Because, you know, characters are on an arc, right? We love a character on an arc,
Mm-hmm.
but to be on an arc, you can't be so rigid in your idea. It needs to be something that maybe even actually surprises you as the creator of this character
Mm-hmm.
at some point. And I mean, that's probably easier said than done,
Yeah.
but I think it kind of comes back to what we were saying earlier with don't be so precious about certain
Yeah.
ideas.
And to build on it, if the people listening to this are looking for like actionable steps you can do to do that, teasing this out of this one, give your dungeon master hooks on your character, right? In the same way that the dungeon master gives the players hooks for the story, you, the player, give your dungeon master hooks by the way you build your character. What are these things you can pull? Two, leave your character unfinished, just a little bit. Otherwise, there's no room for improv. Right? Leave it open. Right? Coming from the play-by-post and role-playing background that I did, so I would make characters sometimes where I had thought out every single aspect of who they were, and the characters basically became unplayable because I knew everything about them, and it had become so rigid that there was no longer any fun in it.
And to piggyback on that, don't just give hooks to your dungeon master, but
Mm-hmm.
create hooks in gameplay for your fellow players where you can.
Mm-hmm.
You know, DMT was talking about, you know, one of his characters getting attached to mine, and I think a lot of that too is like knowing you have a backstory. You know, the cliche is dumping all of your backstory all at once.
Mm-hmm.
It's someone it becomes easy to do so, and I think you know it's practicing. And you know, again, I mentioned it earlier, I'm a Scorpio, so maybe this is just an inherent vice of mine, if you will, but practice withholding sometimes, giving a
Yes.
little bit, but not everything,
Secrets.
and teasing things out, and you know taking you know because it's like in real life you don't meet somebody in the street, spend 4 hours with them, and then are like, here's everything about me. You know, you gotta like you know
That
develop these relationships.
that's
It's
called
like you're
love
you know
bombing. We don't
yeah,
we don't
love
recommend it for
bombing
D&D.
or you know what's the oversharing
Yeah.
or you know whatever you want to call your specific flavor of
Mm-hmm.
that. But you know, finding ways to it's real stupid, but just talk and connect with your players and their characters,
Art.
whether you're the DM or a player trying to connect with
Why?
another player, and
Why?
invite them to be interested in your
Yeah.
character and take
Oracle.
interest in theirs.
It it sounds like you're suggesting that people need to collaborate inside collaborative storytelling games.
Right, and it's not just player with DM; it's players with players.
What? That's crazy.
That's
Yeah.
wild.
And let me
I
tell you, your DM will be super thankful if you're collaborating with other players because it's
Yes.
one less plate they have to spin.
Yes.
That is so true. I couldn't recommend that enough. I think
Mm-hmm.
something that I notice a lot, you mentioned the backstory dumping. When I'm DMing for younger generations, that is something they definitely do,
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
just trauma dump with their characters to the party. Something that I would love to encourage players to do is to, like Oracle has said, and Voice in the Sky is like find the hooks that your party members have and buy into those.
Yeah.
That's something I think Umala did a good job with Tonk, especially when time travel got brought up. And then I've kind of taken that into other characters, other stories as well. So I mean, how can we encourage? How can DMs, GMs encourage the dynamics with those players if unless we've already covered that?
Well, I would say we've mostly covered it already, but I would say if especially if it's young players or new players, sit with them while they're making their characters and give them some input. Don't right? Like a lot of these mistakes are very common mistakes. It's the same mistakes people make in friendships when they're really young. And but this is just writ large because now you have the freedom to do whatever you want in D&D or Pathfinder or whatever it is. So sit with them, give them input, and like, hey, that's a really cool idea. I'm not sure this is the game for that.
And the thing that I would say, whether you're a DM trying to get your player to engage more with character creation, or whether you're a player trying to engage more with another player, or a player trying to engage with what your DM's putting before you, is displaying enthusiastic
Yeah.
interest. That's what gets the stories moving forward,
Yes.
because what happens a lot is people are like, oh, that's cool, but then they don't really, they kind of just take it and they sit with it. And, when the story juices really get flowing is when somebody else goes, hey, that thing that you were saying, tell me more about that. Or wait, what's going on here? What's happening with this story beat? Or hey, you mentioned that you came from this. Or hey, I noticed when we were doing this encounter, you reacted this way, and I was just curious about that. Whether that's talking to them after the game, but even more, I think, talking to them in game, in
Yes.
character, is a great way to just, as a DM, you go where the players are interested. As a player, you gain bonds with your other players by being interested in what they're doing. I know it sounds basic, but, it is
Be
something
interested
that's
in
kind
other
of not
players.
always super intuitive.
And I will throw in one more tip for dungeon masters and game masters. You can model this with your NPCs. The NPCs can act as an in-game voice for you, the dungeon master and game master, and you can use that to encourage social interaction. And if all else fails, introduce a cute pet NPC that then everyone else engages with to get them talking, including maybe a goblin, or maybe a Zorn, or potentially a donkey that then you kill. One of those kind of options.
Just
sure.
not a baby snow leopard, right?
Not
We're
a bit.
doing
No,
that.
that's completely unacceptable.
And
Okay, just making sure.
I also find that players often, it's a fine line, because if you created an incompetent NPC who
Yes.
just gets in the way, that's
Yeah.
one thing.
They'll hate them.
But if you can find the nice line of creating like a lovable doofus, parties love a lovable doofus.
Parties do love them.
Somebody who's a bit of an idiot, but he's your idiot, right? And he doesn't like actively ruin your goals per se. That's a fine line to walk as a DM, but when it hits,
Just
parties
don't
tend
make
to adopt
don't
these
make the
NPCs.
doofus in charge of the party, and don't make them a sexist and a racist or a halfling.
Yeah, and don't have them like actively like making every single thing they're trying to do fail
Yeah.
with their doofusness. It needs to be a balance. But if you can strike that balance, I mean, look at for Voice in the Skies campaign, Lamellar is a perfect example. Like he
Yes.
hasn't actively foiled anything we've done, so he's a lovable doofus.
Yeah.
That dude's gonna be top rank military expert.
By the time you guys see him again, he's going to be in charge of a company of people, and that way he can delegate out and sneak naps in the storage room.
We are sparking the fall of the Giffian Empire because we are getting this guy promoted when he doesn't deserve it.
He does not deserve it at all.
Failing forward.
Former meritocracy crumbles under nepotism.
Oh no! Who could have seen it?
Who could have seen this come? Rome, how'd you get in here? We thought we weren't inspired by you this time.
Rome's always here.
Rome,
In here.
It's always in here. Always in our hearts and in our minds.
Correct.
I think there's an important topic we do want to cover.
Mm.
Something that I personally come across a lot and have some insight on,
Mm-hmm.
though, because we were talking about dynamic characters. So before we get into, the campaigns and stuff, something I've noticed with younger players, but newer players too,
Mm-hmm.
or even long-term players, I see it. Um, we talk about creating dynamic characters. What do we do? What do GMs do? How they handle players or work with players who like to roll new characters a lot or make change up what they want to do with their characters. They're
Oh,
um, I have got some thoughts, but I'd love to hear what you guys have to think about that.
I have actually run into specifically this issue. So one of the players in our group, Queen of Thebes, was not enjoying the character she had made for the Tyrant's Laboratory. She wasn't. It wasn't fun for her, and she felt much more interested in a backup character that she had made. But she'd also made like two or three of them. And so what we did is we sat and talked and figured out, okay, what is it about this character that isn't fun right now? What is it that we're not liking about this? What can we change? And especially when it's a younger person, or maybe a less experienced player, the dungeon master has a lot of leeway. Like, you don't have to be bound and say, oh, you have to play this character, you have to have that class. You can change. You can change it. You have the ability to just change it. You can do that. If it's a class that's making that person unhappy, then you can change the class. If it's a part of the backstory that has been previously established and that's making the character not fun to roleplay as, you can change it. And you can just say, listen, guys, like, let's have a talk here. And you can say it across the table if you need to. This player wasn't having fun with this and this and this, and so we changed some things. Please go along with it when the change happens. And then everyone pretends like it's always been that way, and it's fine.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
changing class is like the easiest
Oh,
one to
absolutely.
do because if they're rooted in a character and it's not the character that they don't enjoy, but the class, it's like super easy. I mean, all of these classes come packed heavy with various tropes that are pretty typical in, for D&D, it's a fantasy type setting, right? So they're all come steeped with various points of influence in terms of storytelling that you've probably taken in as a DM. So it's pretty easy, I
It's pretty
think,
easy.
to think of creative ways to have them change their class, whether
And
it's just straight up, hey, everybody, we're just going to change it. We're not going to worry much about
yeah,
it. Or if you're wanting to integrate it into the story, if that's what you feel is more appropriate and fun, I think that's
yeah.
fairly simple to
And
do.
and a lot of
But I think
times,
the real challenge is when they don't like the character.
yeah, yeah. And
Well,
uh,
I might have something to say about
I,
this
I,
actually.
let me finish this one thought, and then feel free to take it for
Please.
run DMT. A lot of times, it's not even the class that they're not happy with; it's the fact that they feel ineffective as that class.
Mhm.
And so, if you can work to improve the maybe through some optimizing or something along those lines, or maybe some pointers on gameplay, usually they end up having a lot more fun.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
For sure. Yeah. No, and kind of to add to that,
Mm-hmm.
after you, now Queen of Thieves is one of our younger players
Mm-hmm.
in our party. So I mean, no shade at all. It's all about learning and growing as
Very,
Mhm.
individuals,
yeah, very
and
experienced
in
already.
collaboration.
Yeah.
Umala
So
changed classes
Yes.
mid-campaign,
Mumala
and
did change
in fact,
classes.
we
Yeah.
created our own subclass. So like,
Yeah.
I'm not. It's a pretty common thing.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, totally. So after a tyrant's block, she had come to me as the DM for Strongholds and basically said the same thing about her character Buckler.
Mm-hmm.
And I went an opposite route than what you did. Not to say there's a wrong,
Mm-hmm.
right or wrong about this, because I do agree
Mm-hmm.
with everything you're saying
Yeah.
about changing it all up. But I said no
Mm-hmm.
and challenged her to find more depth to Buckler before she just gives up on the
Mm-hmm.
character and re-rolls. I wanted to challenge her to do this because I think where she was in her experience as a tabletop RPG player was finding that next step at making a dynamic character. And with Buckler, I mean, it's in the name. You can kind of tell the whole premise of Buckler was a dude with a cool shield.
Cool shield, yeah.
And um and I got to give her props because we did work
Mm-hmm.
together and I gave her some questions to answer about
Mm-hmm.
like to kind of help round out Buckler on the RP
Mm-hmm.
side. But also the mechanic side in battle because mostly what she was doing was healing and casting using her shield to block things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that really came through in this current block that we're in for
I agree.
strongholds. Is Buckler's really holding it down as a support character?
Absolutely.
I
And
I honestly think that I would have taken the life of Kevin if it weren't for
oh,
Buckler.
agreed,
I think
100%.
Kevin would be dead right now as we're
Yes.
speaking if it
Yes.
weren't for Buckler.
No, mechanically, Buckler has really stepped up. Also, Queen of Thebes is doing a much better job. Just props to her for this, of not writing herself out of role plays,
Hmm.
which
Hmm.
is something that people can accidentally end up doing, in which they end up sort of bowing out of a story through actions they take, and then not getting a chance to shine when they really wanted.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I
I know in
think.
Strongholds is my favorite player with player interaction with her one of her characters
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
I think shortly after she was given that challenge, there have been a few sessions where my character and her character got to have sort of one-on-one
Mm-hmm.
conversations, and in a lot of ways, it felt very reminiscent to me of obviously different story beats, not exactly the same, but it felt very similar to times in Voice in the Skies campaign where my character would make connection with Douchebag's character
Mm-hmm.
or Run DMT's character. So, I think that sometimes it's it's a bit of like yeah, like Run DMT was saying of maybe you made a character and now you need to just like explore further with the role play and also maybe just getting used to a certain game style because not everybody is a natural support player. So if
Mm-hmm.
you build a support character, sometimes it takes a moment to really like feel fulfilled in that role,
Mm-hmm.
especially in a D&D, which is such a combat heavy one. If you're not the
Yeah.
one dealing with big hits, sometimes it takes a minute to be like, well, how can I feel like I'm contributing?
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. So like, I didn't just say, go figure it out, but
Yeah.
we worked on
Get out
some
of here, kid.
prompts, asked her
Moral of the
some
story is
questions about her
communication is solves a
character.
lot of problems.
Yeah, and get out of here, kid. Get good. Uh, no, it was, some prompts were
Mm-hmm.
asked, some brainstorming sessions, and
Mm-hmm.
actually she did, hopefully it gets revealed at some point in the story, but she added a lot to Buckler's backstory
Yeah.
that were specifically related to Buckler, which
Mm-hmm.
made it easier for me as a DM to kind of write more as well.
Yeah.
Um, Stuff for things to be more engaging for her while playing Buckler.
Yeah.
And then something else I've also done with other D&D parties is that, especially with younger generations or newer D&D players, is when we finish an arc, I leave it open for people to leave the party if they
Yeah.
want to, so they can roll a new character and try
Mm-hmm.
something else
Mm-hmm.
as
And
well.
traditionally that was the norm. That used to be the norm of how campaigns were run. This idea that you would take this one party through the entire world-saving story is more of the modern zeitgeist than the historical one for D&D.
I did not know that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
But that makes sense when you say it.
Yeah.
Go get the treasure. Okay, we got
Yeah.
the treasure.
You got the
I'm gonna
treasure.
retire and make a new character.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm bored with this character. I want to try wizard now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
Good call.
yeah. Because
Always try a wizard.
always try a wizard. Always try a wizard. Right. And
What class would you give a new player? I'm just curious.
what edition?
Like, what do you think is 5e, 5.5 D&D?
I would ask them a couple questions about like what they're trying, like what their idea of a hero is, and then I would probably end up giving them either a rogue or a paladin, and
Yeah.
then if they had anything that was kind of delving off of that into a different direction, then I would kind of adapt to that as possible. But I feel like rogue and paladin are really good
Yeah.
for starters.
My usual go-to is to tell them to stop looking at druid and wizard. I know what you're thinking, but don't do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
unless they're like really passionate and
Yes.
like, and when I do that, I'm like, all right, here, let's look at some spells together. And if this
Yes.
blows your brain up, let's think about maybe not doing it. But if you look
Yes.
at this and you go, this is still feels good to me,
Mm-hmm.
then go
Because
forward.
there's nothing wrong with those classes. They are super powerful classes,
Mm,
and they are mechanically deep, very mechanically deep. And for someone learning the rules, it can be difficult.
for sure,
And
for sure. Whereas
unfortunately, Moon Druid attracts new players like flies to a light bulb, moths to a flame. Because
I
the
feel
idea of
like
turning into animals is a lot of
druid and
fun.
wizard
Yeah.
both are are pretty good. And then in some cases warlock, but warlock is a
Hmm.
little more easier
Warlock is
because you
definitely
still only
easier.
have certain things you
I
have less
think,
options
yeah, I
of
think
spells and less mechanics.
best introductory martials are probably arguably monk and fighter. You can maybe say barbarian, but barbarian also is partially support. Best introductory casters is probably sorcerer and warlock.
You think so? You think sorcerer? I don't know.
Sorcerer is
I just
easy
feel
because
like
you don't have to change your
sorcerer is
spells.
real easy. It's just real easy to make some choices that maybe
It
don't
it is easy
click
to
the way
gimp the
you're picturing
character.
them in your brain.
I will say that it is easy to gimp the character, but
Yeah.
it's not a lot of upkeep because you're not having to change your spells every long rest.
You're not having to change your spells,
Hmm.
but you might have a vision in your head, and then you're like, I have to manage these points, and then so it just depends. And
Hmm.
it's like, I never want to write off a new player's capacity to understand the rules or come into that
Hmm.
because you don't want to feel like you're infantilizing them with when they join in because
Hmm.
that'll kill the
It
passion just as
will.
quick as anything
It
else.
will. Um,
But
yeah.
I feel like Rogue has a very high success rate of
Hmm.
new player. I
Hmm.
grasp what my character
Yeah.
does. I have fun doing it. So
I agree.
that's one I would
I
suggest.
agree. And I think.
I've had the most success with rogues,
Hmm.
with players being rogues, and I've had the most success with sorcerers.
Yeah.
However, with the sorcerers, I do have to say they've never used their points. They've just liked casting an
Hmm.
abundance of spells.
Hmm.
So I
Yeah.
see like kind of the learning curve gets less steep with the rogues than
I,
those who do start with sorcerer, and that's just my experience with kids
Hmm.
ages 9 to 17.
yeah, and maybe I'm just so wizard pilled that I uh, am unable to see this in a way that maybe is reality. But to me, it's like when you're looking at wizard versus sorcerer in terms of what's more simple. I honestly think wizard is more simple. The complexity is the bevy of spell options.
Yes.
That's what's simple. I think the actual execution of what their class
I
does
now
is easier.
here's where I will disagree with you because I still have experienced players that
Mhm.
play wizard. I'm not going to name names who struggle to remember the difference between spells in their spell book and spells prepared.
That's fair. That part is fair. I
Who
will
could
say
that be?
though.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not going to name any
yeah,
names. I'm not going to say anything.
yeah, yeah. That's fair. But as a DM, and maybe that again, maybe I'm so wizard pilled that I'm just like trying to make playing wizards easier. I usually go, hey, here's some suggested spells when you're first picking it out, and hey,
That's a good way to do it.
and trying to be cognizant of like, hey, new player, you have all these spells. Are
Hmm.
you wanting to change them during this long
Yes.
rest? This is the time to do that.
Yeah.
Hey, Oracle, the King County Library System's looking for more dungeon
Oh,
masters if
hey.
you'd
Hey.
like to be a
If
part of
my
that.
if my work schedule wasn't so completely, oh, you used our f bomb, but if it wasn't so completely just
Food Bard.
yeah, not beneficial for having a good work
Life.
life balance, uh,
Yeah, I
I
hear
would in a
that.
heartbeat. But
Yeah.
although my Mondays are suddenly open again, so who knows?
Yeah, well, Mondays are a popular day for dungeons. Just saying. You have until the fall to figure it out, but I could definitely get you in any location you want.
Hmm.
Well, we can talk off mic on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Just throwing that out there. Thank you for joining us in another rock and roll to hit
Hmm.
episode, Oracle. Thank you for hosting Voice in the Sky.
Of
This has been a
course.
pleasure.
And we
Who
have
wants-
been your fantastic podcasters. I, just a reminder, am the melodious voice in the sky, joined by the Oracle, who is equally fantastic, if not even more so. Certainly sexier.
Whoa. Melodious, though, name of a new character for sure.
Melodious for sure. And then over here we have returning for us once again, Rum DMT, whose intelligence knows no bounds.
And I'm apparently beautiful.
It's true.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, all wonderful people. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell, go outside, touch some grass, and say hello to your mother. Bye.
Say hello to your mother for me.
Yeah. Just say hi.
Hug your dog.